Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the Wine and Gist with Monomoxie podcast. My name is Monomoxie. I am the host, and I am so happy that you tuned in. So, what is the Wine and Gist podcast, and why should you keep listening, right? Well, Wine and Gist is a safe space for unfiltered discussions about lifestyle, dating, and relationships today. Whether you're happily single, on the prowl and ready for love, in a committed relationship, married, or just not sure about what the fuck is going on, there is something on this podcast that will speak to you. Listeners' discretion is advised as there is adult language and mature content. By unfiltered, I mean zero filter. It's raw and real over here, y'all. Well, let's get started with this week's topic, shall we? Grab a glass, have a seat, and let's gist. All right, everybody, let's hop right onto it. So before we get to the gist of this week, I just wanted to tell listeners a little bit about what to expect from the Wine and Gist podcast. So this is essentially a solo podcast. However, I will be having several weekly segments where I will have multiple types of guests come in and discuss topics they're passionate about, topics they're experts in, or just whatever hot topics are going on in the society at the time. I contemplated really hard on what episode to open with because, it's the very first episode and I want to depict the right vibe and the right expectations from the podcast. And, we get very serious, we get deep, we get real. At the same time, we get silly, we get goofy, we talk about sex, we talk about sexual experiences, we talk about dating, relationships with spouses, children, friends, parents, deep and goofy at the same time. So, of course, for the very first episode, I'm like, you know what? Let's go deep. Let's go a little bit deep and, just kind of like dig into some of the things that I don't believe we talk about enough in society. And so I went with character catfishing and how you can identify it so you can stop playing yourself in these relationships by having expectations that nobody set for you to have. So character catfishing is something that a lot of people do not know. They don't notice that they're doing it. It's not really a common term. And a lot of people don't put a lot of thought into it. It is essentially when you meet somebody and you become so infatuated with them, usually for very superficial and surface level reasons, and you start to mold yourself into what you believe their ideals are in order for you to exist in their world. And that obviously always backfires. And that's why later on, when the honeymoon phase is over, reality sets in and people start to play the blame game. You're not doing this for me. You're not doing that for me. You don't care enough. You don't love me enough. But they may have not given you the wrong impression of their character. You were simply so infatuated in who they were or what they were that you decided to change your character in order to exist in their world. That is character catfishing, and it 100% bites you in the ass. I had an old coworker of mine contact me some time ago, and she wanted to talk about issues she was having with a boyfriend of hers. They've been together for about 6 months, and things started out great, per usual. However, around 4 to 5 months, things started to crumble, and it's going pretty bad, and she's ready to call it quits, but part of her really wants to keep trying because she has very strong feelings for him. I have friends and loved ones contact me all the time wanting to just talk and confide in someone. And I love that. I love being that person for them. And so for her, I immediately asked, do you want someone to just listen and nod, or do you want somebody to listen and give you some real advice? And she said, I want you to listen and give me some real advice because I am at my wit's end, but at the same time, I can't seem to let go. So I asked her to explain to me what she believes the issues were. What exactly were the problems that she could not move forward from? And she explained that the relationship had become boring and bland. They don't do anything. She wants to be taken out on dates. She wants to travel. She wants to be more social, be out in social settings. And that's not who he is. He doesn't like doing any of those things, and he's not willing to compromise on her interests and do things with her. Obviously, you're looking at a one-sided situation, right? Two people who are incompatible in their interests, and one person isn't willing to compromise. So naturally, you immediately think, well, what's wrong with him? Why can't he do this? Why can't he do that? But I wanted to dig a little deeper to find out if this is something he's always done and then suddenly pulled back from, or if this is something that he's never done However, she's now expecting it because the honeymoon phase is over and all of the infatuation that blinded her is now coming off. So I asked her, what changed and when did it change? How did it change? What's going on? At what point in your relationship did he stop being this person to you? And she immediately snapped and goes, well, that's the problem. He's never done this for me. And I just feel like it's because he doesn't love me. He doesn't care because he isn't willing to do the things that I've asked him to do to make me feel loved and appreciated. And he's just never been that person and it's really frustrating. I said, okay, sis, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here just a little bit. So basically you're saying that he's never been this person to you off the get-go. He's never been the take you out on dates, travel with you, go out with your friends with you. He's never been that person. And you proceeded to see him for 6 months. And now you're deciding that you want him to be a different person in order to keep seeing him. I said, okay, so what was the appeal to begin with? Because he's not what you want and you stated he's never been that person. So what was it about him that appealed to you in the first place that you gave him 6 months of your time? And she said, well, he's dependable. He has a stable career. He has his own place. No children, no baby mama drama. He's a very low-key guy. He's very good looking, great in bed. All these superficial reasons to want someone is what she listed. And I said, okay, so you ended at surface level. And now that the infatuation phase is over, you're seeing the real part of this person. And the funny thing is, from what you're telling me, is that he never showed you he was anybody other than this person. But you wanted to belong in his world. You wanted a man who was successful, a man who was career-minded, a man who wanted to own real estate properties, a man who didn't have kids, a man who didn't have any baby mama drama. You were so focused on the surface level that you proceeded with your emotions before checking if this person is actually compatible with who you are and not what you want. And then she came back with, well, if he loves me enough, he will change. I said, no, ma'am. No, madam. That is not a thing. First of all, you don't want a man that you need to change. No woman wants that. Nobody wants a person that they need to change. And this is the problem in so many relationships. But what you're failing to understand is he did not catfish his character to keep you. You catfished your character to keep him. Off the get-go, he showed you that he was the homebody type. He would much rather cook at home and stay in than go out and spend money. He would much rather buy, minimal generic brand products than splurge on luxury in order to save money. He showed you that this is who he was, and that is what he wanted from a partner. You became infatuated with the fact that this man checked all your big boxes, no kids, stable career, etc., etc. But while the big boxes are big, the small boxes are many. So you started to mold your character into his ideals. And at some point, your avatar tells you, we're done playing this role. We don't want to do it no more. We miss going out. We miss having fun. We miss social settings with friends. We miss traveling. We miss spending money. And now, instead of realizing that, well, this isn't the right situation for me, which I guess in her situation she kind of did, but she wasn't willing to let go. Instead of realizing that and then letting go, she's looking for ways for him to change so he can become her ideals. And now turning around and blaming him and accusing him of not loving her enough, and that's why he's not changing. But that's who he is. He's never told you he was somebody else. He's never told you he wanted to be somebody else. You were infatuated in everything he was, that you molded your character to exist in his world, and now he's biting you in the ass, and you're accusing him of not loving you enough. That is some of the dangers of character catfishing. As I earlier mentioned, not a lot of people know or realize when this is happening. A lot of people just have that catfish tendency where they become who they're dating without even really kind of catching on to that. They abandon their interests, their lives, their pastimes and start being so consumed in their significant others and doing what he wants or she wants, doing what they want, and just kind of abandon their own individuality. And sometimes that has to do with a severe lack of confidence in oneself, which could also be linked to loneliness. Some people feel like they don't want to be alone, so they're perfectly fine becoming their significant other, whoever that is, at whatever time, in order to exist in their world so they're not alone. Now, character catfishing should not be mistaken for some of the healthy and good changes you make on account of a relationship. There are healthy relationship changes that you make. You meet someone who motivates you to be a better version of yourself, whether it's through eating right or exercising or chasing your ambitions or going back to school or chasing a goal, just being a better version of yourself. It's not necessarily a character catfish. It's simply you being motivated to be a better version of yourself. So things like healthy habits, if you're motivated to eat better, exercise, overall self-care, because you notice that your significant other has very good habits, healthy habits, and active lifestyle, and you just kind of want to be more of that. Now, you need to make sure that this is something you're genuinely interested in. You genuinely want to be a more active and healthy person, and you're not just doing it to impress them or doing it that's just because you want to keep their attention. That's going to backfire 100% of the time. There are also, bad spending habits, learning to be smarter with finances and more careful financial planning. You might be someone who's extremely careless with something like that, and you meet someone who is better with money and not necessarily controlling, but just better at financial planning. But, you make sure that you're actually bad at spending, though. It's not really, because some people would be like, oh, I had McDonald's today instead of eating ramen at home. I'm so bad at spending. No, you just ate. That's just that. There's a difference between being bad at spending and just spending. And, there are also things like bad domestic habits that you can change that are good to change in a relationship. Like if you're just messy, cleanliness, personal hygiene, if you date someone that makes you want to take more showers, all good things. All good things. You know what I mean? And then there's also social habits. Maybe you're someone that when you're single, you go out every night, you get shit faced till 8 o'clock in the morning. And now that you're with someone, well, you can't really do that all the time. You can't go out every night and get shit faced at 8 o'clock in the morning. You have a significant other now. You have someone that you're giving some attention to. You're giving some of your devotion to, and that matters. So that is kind of a healthy habit to change. Maybe instead of going out every night, you kind of take it down to a few nights instead. I don't know. Just a suggestion. Now let's talk about some of the unhealthy things to change on account of a relationship. Your core values. I cannot stress this enough. You will never, ever, ever be able to successfully change your core values just to keep a relationship. It will not work. Your demons and your ancestors will fucking hunt you. Every day you will be unhappy. Your core values are something that cannot be changed on account of a relationship. And I'll give you one example. It's kind of a hot topic example. Now, if you are a man who strongly believes that a woman should also work, whether you have children or not, whether you're married or not, a woman should also work and pay half of the bills. That is a core value for a lot of men. And that's why we have this argument in society today. If you are a man like that, and now you're going after, say, an Instagram model who just wants to make influencer money and live her life and wants to be, taken care of in the sense that she wants to be a housewife. She would much rather be, the trophy housewife type, where she looks good, she looks great, she's a beautiful influencer, but she's not the breadwinner. She wants a man who's a provider. She wants a man who wants a family, and she's willing to be that person. You, as a man who wants a 50-50 woman, you have no business going after her. You have none. Yeah, she's beautiful, she's amazing, she's shiny, and all these great things. But because of your core values, that's not going to be a compatible relationship. You cannot keep her, and you will go after this poor woman and spend the entire relationship making her feel small for who she is because she's not what you want. And that is also, a form of character catfishing. because you know damn well what you want is a 50-50 woman, but you're going after an IG model who wants to be a housewife. That's just nuts. Another thing that you cannot change, or should not change rather, on account of a relationship is your relationship with friends and family. Yes, we know that at the beginning of a relationship, when you start seeing someone, you kind of disappear a little bit, because you're spending more time with them, getting to know them. There's like that feel good honeymoon stage, and things are great, right? But that doesn't mean you completely abandon what you knew before you met this person, right? If you find yourself now you're canceling with your best friend all the time, you're not showing up to family functions anymore because you're going to where that person wants, is you want to be with them all the time. So you're following them around, you're canceling on your loved ones. That's eventually going to backfire. Now, if they are suggesting that you do these things, that is a major, major red flag, because one thing about narcissists is that they will isolate you from everyone you know and love. So that way it is much easier to control you. And that is a fact. If you find yourself just not wanting to spend time with, your friends and family anymore because you're so infatuated with this new person and that's your decision, yes, that's, you're just infatuated. But if you find that this person is starting to make you feel guilty for not spending more time with them, make you feel bad for not doing something that they want and having you cancel on your loved ones in order to accommodate them, my dear, you are dating a narcissist and you should fucking run like now. Another incredibly unhealthy thing to change on account of a relationship is your love language. We all have a love language, every single one of us. There's a way that we prefer to be loved that is different from others, could be different from your significant others. And a lot of times, people tend to love their significant others in their language because they believe that, hey, that's what I would want if it were me. Well, it's not you, it's them, right? It's not you, it's your significant other. So you need to love your significant other in your significant other's language. And if you find that you're constantly teaching your significant other your language, but they're constantly rejecting it and minimizing it and telling you you're overreacting, putting it aside, gaslighting you on the things that you think are very relevant and you want to talk about and focus on, well, that's another narcissistic trait, but it could also just be someone completely oblivious and ignorant. Regardless of whatever the reason is, you do not change your love language on account of a relationship. You don't suddenly say, well, my significant other only likes to give words of affirmation. And even though I like acts of service, I'll settle for words of affirmation because that's all he likes to give. Well, it's going to bite you in the ass, my dear. And the reason for that is, yeah, words of affirmation are great, but that's not your love language. Of course, they're great when you're given a compliment, when you're given a motivational, push. It's great, but it's not your love language. You still want that person to act on things, and that's how they love you. You speak in acts of service, and they might shower you with all the words of affirmation. It's still not going to be enough. So that is something that you cannot give up on account of a relationship. And really, love languages are really so simple. All you have to do is do something that your significant other would like, meaning that you speak to them in their language and they will respond in yours. So, how do you know when it's just temporary infatuation versus the real thing, right? How do you know if you are being a character catfish or they are being a character catfish? Well, if you're feeling like you're ready to dive in with this person and you barely know them, it's probably infatuation. If you can only identify superficial and surface level reasons for wanting them, like their looks, their financial status, sexual pleasure, it's probably infatuation. If you're too distracted with the physical attention to like really explore deeper beyond that, it's probably infatuation. And, if you're so concerned about impressing them that you begin to form, kind of mold your character into something that you're not. You're literally catfishing your character. It's probably infatuation. If you drop everything at their request because you just have to see them, like you call out of work, you cancel with friends, fail to appear at functions because you're hanging out with them, well, infatuation. And like I said, it's very normal at the beginning, but you should learn the difference between genuine interest in someone and just infatuation that turns into a character catfish situation. See, when the honeymoon phase is over, real life sets in. Eventually, we all want to go home from a long vacation, and that's fact. And if your significant other doesn't feel like home, it's not going to work. And you're going to find yourself in that crossroads where you feel like I've invested all this time in this person, I've invested all of this into this relationship, and it's not working out, and you know that. You're at your wit's end and you feel like maybe you should call it quits. But then there's that, part pulling you back that's saying that, well, what if I wind up being lonely? What if I'm not happy? What if I don't find somebody else, who wants me? What if I don't find anyone better than them? Horrible, horrible, horrible mindset to have. Because you know what? You are fucking amazing. You don't need to catfish your character to keep someone, okay? If you find someone that's just not it, they're just not fucking it. That's just that. You are amazing and you need to stay true to that shit. Because if you don't, it will bite you in the ass. It's not that they don't love you. It's not that they don't care about you. It's just that they're not the right one for you. And it sucks when you've invested so much into something that you really wanted to work out and it isn't. It really, really fucking sucks. Like we all know, right? But it doesn't suck as much as staying and pretending and forcing and trying to make something work that just isn't. So no, seriously. Do not catfish your character. Catch yourself when you're in the middle of it. If you meet someone and they say, this is what I like, and you know damn well that does not fly with you, don't be like, I guess I could roll with it because they're this, and all these other things. No. You need to learn to identify your absolute nots and your maybe I'll deal with and your absolute goes. 3 categories. Things that you will absolutely not accept from a relationship. Things that maybe you might accept depending on the situation. And things that you are primarily looking for, your green flags. So you have your red flags, your yellow flags, and your green flags. My advice for the week is to stay true to who the fuck you are. Don't change on account of somebody else. Don't change on account of molding your character so you can keep someone else. If you feel that, you know what, there's certain things about you that just really suck and you need to change, that's good. That's called accountability. Get out there and make those changes. But do not change them on account of a relationship because you're trying to keep someone. At the end of the day, we can all only play a character for so long. We can only play a role for so long before our avatar says, nope, we got to go back to who we are. We got to go back to original state. This isn't working. This was fun while it lasted, but we need to be who we are now. You can only play that role for so long. And that's why character catfishing 100% backfire. All right, everybody. We are at the end of the very first episode of the Wine and Gist with Monomoxie podcast. If you've listened all the way to this point, thank you so much for your ear. Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned. We are going to have an episode every Tuesday, and next Tuesday's episode is a little more juicy, so stay tuned for that. Please send us a message, send us a DM, drop a comment, let us know what you think. I love having these feedbacks. Please go ahead and let me have it. Are you a character catfisher? Do you know someone who character catfishes? Have you been character catfished before? Tell me what you think about this week's topic. Until next time, have a wonderful, super awesome day.